She walked into my office for a final interview, desperate for a job, with no idea who was sitting behind that desk. 5 years earlier, she'd left me because I was too comfortable and lacked ambition. She married a VP at a Fortune 500 company and became the trophy wife she'd always wanted to be. Now she was unemployed, desperate, and applying to my multi-million-dollar firm. When I turned that chair around and she saw my face, the color drained from hers completely. "Hello, Jessica," I said calmly. "Let's talk about loyalty." This is the story of how my ex-wife threw away everything for status and money, and how karma delivered her right back to my office 5 years later. My name is Ryan, and 5 years ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I was 28, working as a project manager at a mid-sized tech company, making decent money, about $85K a year. I had a girlfriend I was planning to propose to, Jessica, and we'd been together for 4 years. We lived comfortably. Not extravagantly, but we had everything we needed. A nice apartment, reliable cars, regular vacations. I was happy. Jessica wasn't. It started with small comments. "Don't you want more out of life?" Or, "My friend's boyfriend just got promoted to director. What's your timeline?" I'd explain that I was building my skills, learning the industry, positioning myself for the right opportunities. I wasn't in a rush. "That's the problem," she'd say. "You're never in a rush. You're too comfortable with being average." The word average stung every time she used it. Things came to a head at her company holiday party. Jessica worked in marketing at a large pharmaceutical company. The party was at a fancy hotel, open bar, the works. She introduced me to her colleagues, and I could feel her embarrassment when they asked what I did. "Project management," I'd say. "Oh, nice. What company?" When I'd name it, a company they'd never heard of, I could see Jessica's face tighten. Later that night, we had the fight that ended everything. "I can't do this anymore," she said in the car on the way home. "Do what?" "Be with someone who has no ambition. I'm 26 years old, Ryan. I want a life, a real life. Country clubs, nice houses, private schools for our kids someday. You're content being middle class forever." "I'm building towards something. You're stagnant, and I'm not going to be stagnant with you." 2 weeks later, she moved out. 1 month after that, I saw her Instagram post. Champagne glasses, fancy restaurant, tagged with a guy named Bradley Westmore. I looked him up, VP of operations at her company. Early 40s, divorced, successful, everything I apparently wasn't. The caption on her post, "New chapter, new energy, finally living the life I deserve." It felt like someone had put a knife in my chest and twisted it. The first 3 months after Jessica left were the darkest of my life. I barely ate, lost 15 pounds, stopped going to the gym. Some days I'd sit at my desk and stare at the wall, questioning everything about myself. Was I really that unmotivated? That average? Had I wasted her time? Then one night, I was scrolling through her social media, something I knew I shouldn't do but couldn't stop, and I saw a photo that changed everything. It was Jessica and Bradley at some charity gala. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The caption read, "When your man knows how to treat you right, #blessed, living my best life." Something in me snapped, not toward anger, toward clarity. I realized I'd been letting her define my worth. I'd internalized her judgment and made it my own. But the truth was, I wasn't unmotivated. I was strategic. I was learning. I was building. I just hadn't been doing it on her timeline. That night, I made a decision. I was going to build something so successful that no one would ever call me comfortable or average again. Not for revenge, for me. I started working on a side project I'd been thinking about for years, a SaaS platform for project management specifically designed for small to medium-sized businesses. Every night after my day job, I'd work until 2 a.m. Weekends were 16-hour coding sessions. I taught myself advanced programming, UI/UX design, business development. I lived like a monk. No dating, no social life, no unnecessary expenses. Every dollar went into the business. After 8 months, I launched the beta, started reaching out to companies I'd networked with over the years. The response was better than I'd hoped. Within a year, I had 200 paying clients. Year 2, 1,500 clients. I quit my day job and went all in. Year 3 was explosive. We hit $8 million in annual recurring revenue. I hired a team of 15, moved into a real office, started winning industry awards. Year 4, $22 million ARR, team of 40. We were the fastest growing project management platform in our category. I bought a house, not to show off, but because I could. Invested in other startups, built a portfolio. By year 5, my company, Apex Project Solutions, was valued at $50 million. We had 75 employees, 8,000 clients, and I was personally worth about $30 million on paper. I'd gone from too comfortable to building an empire. And I'd done it all while Jessica was posting photos of charity galas and country club brunches, living off Bradley's income, contributing nothing.
Then everything changed for her. I heard through a mutual friend that Bradley's company had gone through massive restructuring, cutting measures. His entire division was eliminated. Bradley, the VP who'd seemed so stable and successful, was suddenly unemployed at 45 with a lifestyle he couldn't maintain. The fancy house they'd bought? Mortgaged to the limit. The cars? Leased. The country club membership? Canceled within 2 months. Jessica, who'd left her marketing job to be a full-time trophy wife, suddenly needed to work again. But she'd been out of the industry for 5 years. Her skills were outdated, her network had moved on. I learned all this because she applied to my company. She had no idea Apex Project Solutions was mine. It was a relatively generic name, and I kept a low profile. No social media presence, no photos on the website. Our head of HR handled most recruiting. When her resume crossed my desk, I almost laughed. Jessica Westmore, formerly Bennett. She'd taken Bradley's name. Her cover letter was desperate, eager to return to the workforce after a brief career pause, bringing fresh perspective and renewed energy to your organization. A brief career pause. That's what she called abandoning her career to be kept by a man. I could have rejected her application immediately, but something made me do something different. I told my HR director to move her through the process. Phone screen, first interview, second interview, and if she made it through all of those, I'd do the final interview personally. Jessica made it through every round. My team had no idea who she was to me. They evaluated her fairly. Outdated skills, but decent experience before her pause. Polished presentation, clearly intelligent. The feedback was mixed. She could work, but she'd need significant training to catch up on the tools and strategies we use now. Schedule her for a final interview, I said. I'll handle it. The day came. I watched on the security monitor as she walked into our building. She looked different. Older, obviously. Thinner, more tired. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a conservative interview suit from Ann Taylor. She checked in with reception, was offered water, sat nervously in the waiting area. I let her wait for exactly 15 minutes, long enough to get anxious. Then my assistant walked her to my office. Corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, the works. My chair was turned toward the window when she entered. "Ms. Westmore," my assistant said, "this is our CEO, Ryan Bennett. Ryan, this is Jessica Westmore." I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I slowly turned the chair around. The recognition on her face was instant and devastating. Her mouth fell open. The folder in her hands, the one with her resume and references, slipped slightly. She actually stumbled backward a step. "Ryan?" she whispered. "Hello, Jessica." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit down." She didn't move. She was frozen, her face cycling through shock, confusion, fear, and something that looked like shame. I didn't know. The company website didn't have... "I prefer to keep a low profile," I said calmly. "Sit down. You're here for an interview, aren't you?" Slowly, mechanically, she lowered herself into the chair. I picked up her resume, making a show of reading it carefully. Jessica Westmore, formerly Bennett. I looked up. "You took your husband's name. How's Bradley doing?" Her eyes filled with tears. We're going through a difficult time." I heard. Layoffs are tough, especially at his age. I set down the resume. "So you've been out of the workforce for 5 years. That's quite a gap." I took time to focus on other priorities. Being a trophy wife? The words came out harder than I intended. She flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You left your career to be supported by a man who could give you the lifestyle you wanted. Now that lifestyle is gone and you need a job. That's the definition of a trophy wife." "Ryan, please." "Let's talk about this resume," my voice continued professionally. "You have decent experience from 6 years ago, but our industry has changed dramatically. The tools we used then are obsolete. The strategies are different. You'd essentially be starting over." "I'm a fast learner. I can catch up. I just need a chance." "A chance?" I leaned back in my chair. "That's interesting, because 5 years ago, you told me I'd never amount to anything, that I was too comfortable, too average, that I lacked ambition." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I was wrong. I was so wrong about you, about everything. You left me because I wasn't making enough money fast enough. You married Bradley because he was a VP with a title and a salary that impressed you. You chose status over substance. I know, I was stupid. I was shallow. I threw away something real for something that looked good on paper." I pulled out another document from my desk drawer. She watched, confused. "Do you know what this is?" I held it up. She shook her head. "This is the deed to the house at 4782 Maple Grove Drive. That's where you and Bradley live, isn't it?" Her eyes went wide. "So Bradley's been struggling to make the mortgage payments. He fell behind. The house went into foreclosure proceedings." I paused. "I bought it, through an LLC, quietly. I'm now Bradley's landlord." She looked like she might be sick. "So, let's talk about this job. You're asking me, the man you called unmotivated, the man you abandoned because I wasn't climbing the ladder fast enough, to give you a chance, to save you from the consequences of the choices you made." "Ryan, I'm begging you. I know I don't deserve it. I know I hurt you, but I need this job. We're drowning. Bradley's been applying everywhere, but he's overqualified for entry level and too old for the positions he's qualified for. I'm the only hope we have."
I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Part of me wanted to help her, not because I still had feelings, those died years ago, but because I wasn't a cruel person. But another part of me knew that hiring her would be a mistake, not for revenge, but for practical reasons. "Jessica, I'm going to be honest with you. You're not qualified for this position. You'd need months of training to catch up, and even then you'd be playing from behind. We need people who can hit the ground running. I'll work harder than anyone. I'll take a lower salary. I'll do whatever it takes." "That's not the point," I turned back to face her. "The point is fit, company culture, and one of our core values is loyalty." The word hung in the air. Loyalty to clients, loyalty to the team, loyalty to our mission. I picked up her resume again. "Your track record shows me someone who jumps ship when things get tough or when a better offer comes along. That's not who we are." "That's not fair." "It's completely fair. You made choices based on what was immediately gratifying rather than what was sustainable. You chose the VP with the title over the project manager who was building something real.
That's a pattern of decision-making that I don't want in my company." She was sobbing now. "I'm sorry, Jessica, but I'm going to have to pass on your application." She stood up, shakily, gathering her things. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth," she said, her voice broken, "I'm proud of you, of what you built. You proved me completely wrong." "I didn't build this to prove you wrong," I said quietly. "I built it to prove myself right. That's the difference between us. You were always looking outside yourself for validation. I looked within." She nodded, tears still flowing, and left. I watched from my window as she walked to her car, a 10-year-old Honda, nothing like the luxury vehicles she used to post about, and sat there for a full 5 minutes before driving away. Did I feel good about it? Not really. There was no satisfaction in watching someone I'd once cared about hit rock bottom. But I didn't feel guilty either. I'd made a business decision based on qualifications and cultural fit. The personal history just reinforced what was already true. She wasn't right for the company. 6 months later, I heard Jessica found a job, entry-level position at a small marketing agency, making about a third of what she used to. She and Bradley downsized to a small apartment, sold the cars, started over. I actually hope they make it work, not because I care about her happiness specifically, but because I genuinely wish everyone well who's trying to rebuild. As for me, I'm dating someone incredible, Dr. Sarah Chen, a research scientist, brilliant, grounded, ambitious in the right ways. She doesn't care about my money or my company. She cares about ideas, impact, making a difference. We met at a coffee shop where I was working on my laptop in jeans and a t-shirt. She had no idea who I was or what I'd built. We just talked about books and science and life for 2 hours. That's the kind of connection Jessica and I never had. If you're watching this and you've been left behind or called not enough, here's what I learned. 1. The people who dismiss you during your building phase don't deserve to celebrate your success phase. 2. Build for yourself, not to prove anything to anyone else. External validation is empty. 3. Choose partners who love you for who you are, not for what you can provide or what status you represent. 4. Success built slowly and sustainably outlasts success that looks good on Instagram. And 5. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. Just focus on building something great, and life has a way of balancing the scales. Thanks for watching this story. If it resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about your own journey from being underestimated to proving yourself. Remember, the person who leaves you for someone better usually learns that better is subjective, and character beats credentials every single time. Build your empire, live your truth, let karma handle the rest. See you in the next video.